It's early on a Sunday morning. I'm here in Fort Hill Cemetery in Cookstown in Mid-Ulster. A lot of my extended family are from this area, so over the years I've been back to this graveyard for a number of funerals. I've got grandparents buried here, aunts, probably distant cousins I don't know about. My own father is buried up the hill just behind me, and that's where my mother will be buried when she passes. The whole cemetery is on a slope, so the higher you get up, the more you can see the countryside. It's actually quite a nice place to visit on a quiet morning like this. But with the number of funerals that I've attended over the years, obviously you bury the dead, and afterwards the living are left to get on with their grief. But what I want to know is, for the dead, what happens next? Afterlives with Colin Dardis. Just walking up the hill now to visit my own father's grave, buried in 2017. We often think about death and the afterlife, perhaps around the time of the funerals when people get sick, immediately in the wake of their death. But we never really consider what happens beyond that too much. That's what I want to find out. I'm going to be probing into that a little bit in the conversations across this podcast. So for today's episode, I'm joined by my friend David Armitage. David is a poet, painter, formerly a councillor for the Alliance Party here in Northern Ireland, and also campaigns for mental health awareness and suicide advocacy. Hi, David. Thanks very much for being with us. How are you?
Hi, Colin. Thank you for the invite.
Very glad we get to talk to you here today. David, just first of all, I kind of just wanted to ask, how would you identify your own beliefs when it comes to spirituality or faith, or however you might choose to term it?
Yeah. I guess traditionally Christian is the main thing, and being Northern Ireland, I have to say, is more on the Protestant side. But that's the basis where I start from. But I spread out. I love different parts of the breadth of Christianity, like the icons of the Orthodox Church. I've got one hanging on my wall, and every morning that gives me reassurance and stuff like that. So, and I like the rituals of other denominations and stuff as well. So,
okay.
Even though I go to a vineyard, is the church I go to, which is probably quite charismatic, and see the Holy Spirit moving and God healing and things like that.
So when some people say Christian, they might have like a vague sense of Christianity, and they would call themselves a Christian with a small c. But I get the sense from your description that you would be more a Christian with a capital C. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, Christianity is the start of everything that's involved, my politics, my arts, writing and stuff. So it's at the heart, and yeah, mental health stuff as well. It's been at the heart of everything that makes me me.
Had you always been a Christian? Had you been brought up in a Christian background, or is this something that you came to later in life?
My adopted family were churchgoers, and they were quite active in the church, but it wasn't until I left home at the age of 17 that I decided to become a Christian. And that was because at the age of 13 was my first suicide attempt, and I dropped out of school a bit and stuff. And then at the age of 16, I prayed my first real prayer, you get me somewhere to live and I wanted to work with animals and live in the countryside. So, and children, I want to work with children and animals and live in the countryside. So I prayed that prayer, and a few months later, I moved down to the English countryside and worked on a children's home looking after a small farmyard.
And was it that initial experience of working at 16, 17, did that play a part in you becoming a committed Christian?
Yeah, because I felt that God had done his part of the deal, so I had to do mine. And at that time, the family I was working for, who owned the children's home, were a very good Catholic family. They also owned C&A department stores, so that's how they funded the children's home and stuff. I did go to the Catholic chapel a few times, I think, but there's a church in the village that I went to, and it's just their friendliness that brought me in. But it was in a Catholic church ecumenical prayer meeting that I felt that God's love was there, and I had to make a choice to say yes to that. There was no big theological signing on the dotted line sort of thing. It's just a emotional response. I think I cried for a couple of hours at that meeting.
Wow. Right.
Mm.
So this happened at 17, is that right?
Yeah.
And before then, obviously you mentioned the suicide attempt at 13, but before the conversion, had you given much consideration to the afterlife or whatever might be beyond this life?
Yes, because even being brought up, going to church and stuff, that was always there, the thought of heaven. And I think that's part of my suicide journey, that I rejected their version of heaven, and I wanted to find out if there was something real. And at that time, is the New Age movement was really starting to kick off, and the world global level, like CND, was quite active because there's a real fear of there's going to be nuclear war soon. And so it just seemed like every part of my life was falling apart globally, nationally, even at home and internally as well. So there's got to be a reason, or there's got to be a purpose or something, either now or afterwards. Otherwise, I don't want to be around.
And when you say you rejected their version of heaven, what was that looking like initially then?
I think it's probably more the traditional Christian view of everything's going to be nice and lovely, and all you need to do is do nice things and you'll get there, and we're all in, sort of thing. That lacked clarity for me, and it lacked sort of any deep meaning of, like, so what? It didn't seem attractive to me. It just seemed like another version of life down here.
Obviously, yeah, coming from a very traditionalist point of view, everything happy, being one with God. In a previous conversation we had, you did kind of mention in regards to the suicide attempts that you did feel some kind of calling from God. Is that right?
Yes. So that time at 13, when I tried to take my life, I felt I couldn't carry on with the act. And I think it was more than just psychological, me not being able to do it. I just felt a presence, and I felt that the voice saying, no, don't, things will get better. And that happened. And then I did drop out of school, and then I went to a special school, and family situation changed a bit. So things did get better. So was it coincidence? Was it my mind, or was it God working?
But whatever force was behind it, I'm so glad that it did get better for you, David. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So you've gone on to then kind of formulate your own view of heaven or the afterlife or a life with God that goes beyond your initial family teaching or the initial teachings of the church when you were younger. So I'd like to tap into that a little bit. When we talk about heaven or being at God's side in a Christian point of view, for you is that exactly like?
That's a difficult question because I've been mulling over it for a while, and the Lord's Prayer says, bringing heaven to earth. So it's got to be something tangible, real now. But also I feel it's something in the future as well that I used to have a car sticker. I had a really old banger, and I used to go to a church that had loads of rich Christians, and I used to try and park next to the biggest, newest, fanciest car. And my car sticker said, don't worry, my reward is in heaven. And
nice.
I used to like annoying people like that. And and for me, that's part of it as well. Like, I'm doing stuff now, but I know that part of it is in the future as well, as well as the benefit now. And it's not a selfish thing, like I want to have all the perks going. But for me, it's just like, I know I'm doing the right thing, and I'm getting rewarded for it, and I will get rewarded for it, type of thing. And yeah, and it's not fluffy white clouds and angels with harps and type of thing. I think it's going to be more of an adventure. I like the writings of C.S. Lewis a lot, and he wrote The Great Divorce, which sort of explains that a bit. I need to reread it because it's a few years ago since I last read it. But that sort of explains the beauty of it and the journey of it. Like, I don't think we're going to know everything all at once. I think it's going to be a journey when we get to heaven. But there's going to be so many brilliant people there to talk to. And maybe do things with as well. Maybe like all the famous footballers who profess faith, or sporting heroes, or the musicians and the artists, the poets and the writers who profess faith. That'd be an amazing jam, that.
It's a great idea that you could sit down and, play a football match or strum the guitar with a legend. That's it's definitely appealing. When you talk about the idea of a reward then in the next life, in what sense does that reward take? It's not just getting to heaven with all these good people, but is it a sense of relief, happiness, being free from any idea of suffering or pain? Is it that kind of award, rather than more material award, obviously?
Yeah, we're constrained by human understanding. So we cannot grasp eternity because we're constrained by time. So in the same ways, I don't think I can understand what the rewards will be, but that passage in Revelation when John writes about no more suffering, no more tears and pain or agony and things like that. For me, that is the reward. I can't wait for that. And sometimes it gets a bit difficult then because I want that now. I want to go to heaven now, or if I can, I want that to happen. But I know that it's got to be in God's timing, not my timing. But I also want to say, like, because there's probably people who struggle with suicide and maybe have lost relatives to suicide, that I believe 100% in the grace of God as well, that no matter what, he knows the situation that I'm going through. And so there won't be any condemnation or anything like that, or going to hell because I took my own life and stuff. I believe I will be in heaven if I do take my own life, but that's the wrong way to get into heaven for me. It's got to be when God wants it, by natural old age sort of thing. So if somebody gets run over and dies that way, they'll still get into heaven, even though it didn't go in God's way, sort of thing.
But God sets the schedule, essentially.
Yeah.
So it's his plan, and if you're a believer, then you just have to abide by it.
Yeah, there's no condemnation and there's lots of grace.
I like this idea of a journey, that not everything is going to be filled right away. And it kind of just made me think, 1 minute after you die or 1 minute after you're called up to heaven, what exactly is that looking like? And, what's your first day like? It is really hard to get the sense out of your head of, St. Peter at the gates and the fluffy white clouds and the angels, as you say. It's really hard to bring it out of the abstract and into the concrete. But do you have any sense or suggestion of what that would involve?
That's a good question. I think, well, C.S. Lewis in that book I mentioned, The Great Divorce, talks of a guide, and hopefully we'll have something like that. I know the Bible does talk about one of our roles ought to be judge angels, but I don't know what that entails and stuff. But I think it'd be just like, it'd be a great orienteering sort of like day. Just like, this is heaven. And then I think I've got a real, especially in Northern Ireland, there's that judgment thing that you haven't been a good person. Like, people talk about Catholic guilt, there's Protestant guilt as well. Like, you haven't witnessed enough, you haven't lived your life well enough, you remember that time you said that, or you did this, and things like that. I think, first of all, Jesus will be there just like giving a big hug. I think that's the first experience.
Hugs are always welcome, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. And for me, that'll be very emotional, because I'm very wary about physical interaction and stuff. And then I don't think there'll be like a big court case against us. Like, this is all the wrong things you've done, but it's okay, Jesus took the price of it, type of thing. I think there'll be a slow realization that, yes, what Jesus did on the cross has made me enter heaven freely. And there's an acceptance of the cost that God took, but there's also a rejoicing, knowing that I'm in. Yeah.
And again, I like this idea of a guide, or if it is Jesus, or maybe it's someone else, maybe we get to choose our guide.
Yeah.
Is there anyone from history that you particularly would like to guide you as an induction into heaven?
I'd like to meet Peter, the apostle. I think he'll be an interesting guy to get to know. St. Francis of Assisi, I'd love to meet him as well. Just that place, a holistic view of the world, but like, he's preached to creation, to animals as much as he preached to people. So that fascinates me. Yeah, there's people like Da Vinci as well, and Van Gogh, that would be great. Vincent van Gogh, if I could, go around heaven painting with him, that would be amazing, that.
I wonder if in heaven Van Gogh's ear would be reattached, if you reclaim your bodily whole in heaven. That makes sense.
Actually, I don't think we will have physical bodies. There's a brilliant quote, I've got it on my wall, by Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, I think it is pronounced, but we're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a physical experience, a human experience. And for me, that human experience is, this is what we're doing now. So when I get to heaven, I will be the real me. And I think that's part of the conversion process of down here, that it's not just getting a ticket when you become a Christian to get into heaven and you can sit back and then do what you want. I see Earth as a training camp, a temporary training camp. And that's where the rewards thing comes into and stuff. And the physical stuff will go away, and the real me, the spiritual me, will be 100% released, sort of thing.
For each episode, I'm going to be sharing a short poem which ties in, hopefully, to some of the themes that my guest and myself have explored in the podcast. And this poem is called That Which Contains Multitudes. We can whisper of transcendence, shout of transformation, widely and wildly proclaim rejection of all forms, or meekly offer unknowing resignation to the inevitability of death. How do you come to a belief? How do we see what others cannot, yet still bump into each other amidst life's untamed hall of mirrors? I see myself in you, full of questions and beseeching answers, offering ourself up as a clue. Life is a form of prayer, said in order to balance our equations. The silence and the noise are the same.
I want to flip it around a little bit because we've talked a bit about heaven, but let's contemplate the other side of it, hell, if it does exist. Yeah. What does hell mean to you, David?
Was it Sartre who said hell was existence, and somebody else said hell is other people? Yeah, I think those two for me will be. I think people like what's his name, who did Divine Comedy, and Dante, him, and the other. There's an artist as well who did some stuff that seemed to get that flames burning and everybody being tortured for all eternity. And for me, that doesn't seem right. We're going to have consequences for our actions, whether we're whatever we've done. Mm-hmm. And yeah, Christians can say that Jesus will take that on the cross, sort of thing. But I can't accept that the same Jesus who'll do loving things for me and make me and create a better life for me and stuff, and heal me and provide for me, will also be deliberately cruel to somebody who says no to Jesus, says no to him. I think hell will be, it's a bit of a Catholic thing, this, I think. It'll be a bit like purgatory, but in a more sort of evangelical way, sort of thing. That where be able to reflect on our lives and come to the conclusion about God and hopefully make the right decision and stuff. And then we'll get in. And I think that'll be a temporary place. I don't think hell is permanent, but heaven is.
So you would say that after our physical deaths, even if we haven't realized the road to salvation then, that there may be a chance of redemption still in the next life?
Yes. And I think Jewish theology hints at that as well, with Abraham's bosom, that Jewish people are waiting for the end of time so that they can get into heaven, type of thing. So I'm not really up to Jewish theology, but that's my basic understanding of it. So
I've read a little bit about it, but if we have any Jewish listeners out there that want to get in touch and correct us, absolutely, please do. Maybe we'll touch upon that in a future episode. Thank you very much for that insight, David, as well. I found that really useful. I just also wanted to ask, then, going back to your mental health advocacy and suicide awareness, and the fact that a belief in the afterlife could impact on the actions that someone does, maybe with, if they were suicidal or express suicidal ideation, or even just any kind of faith might be a deterrent for them to do that. And in your own advocacy, is this something that you find has come up at all through sharing your own story? Is that find that you're helping other people at least just even contemplate it in the sense of a life worth living?
Yes, definitely. There's been a few articles in the Belfast Telegraph and spoken about it quite publicly. So I know that my story has helped other people stay alive and has given comfort to those who have lost people by suicide. And the whole struggle, mental health struggle as well, and stuff, that we get a very narrow view of what a successful Western life is, and it's growing up, doing well at school, going to university, getting a good degree, you get married, you get a job, a good career, you buy a house, you retire, you do what you want to do for a few years, and then you die. That's life. If that's it, I'm not bothered. And also, I haven't worked for a number of years because of my mental health and stuff. But so on an earthly point of view, that level, I'm divorced as well. So I failed on lots of levels. I left school with no qualifications. I did get a degree in my 20s, did go back for that, but divorced and stuff, and mental health, not a good career and things like that and stuff. So from a human point of view, I haven't done well. But that's where eternity comes in, because it's a different measure. It's not success as being able to pay off a mortgage or go on a nice holiday somewhere or get managing director position or whatever. It's what have I done with God's love today? I think that's the only question that's valid. And that's the measure of my success. And so on the worst times, and it was an hour-by-hour basis, I tried to stay alive. And there was, because suicidal thoughts and actions were so strong, and it was other people around me, as well as professionals and stuff, and my faith as well, just being there and just like, I got through this hour, good. I'll get through the next hour. And for me, that's as much a success as getting a bonus at work sort of thing. And in a godly godly or spiritual point of view, what's more important, having a big bank balance down here, or being able to know that I made a difference to myself, to life, and hopefully eternity as well. I think eternity is not set. I think it's there to be defined by us, by what we do here, now, and when we get there as well.
Definitely the way that you described life here with the mortgage, the promotion, earning that money, it feels like a very narrow and restrictive path. And I think you've given us a lot to think about in a very enlightening sense, to maybe look beyond that and find enrichment elsewhere. So thank you very much, David Armitage, for sharing your views today, and good luck with the rest of your journey.
Thank you. It's been a real pleasure, and I hope listeners enjoy it and get a lot out of it.
Thank you.
If you've been affected by any of the issues raised in this episode, please go to findahelpline.com, put in your country, and then select suicidal thoughts in order to find an appropriate helpline in your region. If you're in Northern Ireland, where we record this podcast, please reach out to Lifeline on 0808 808 8000, or you can phone the Samaritans on 116 123. Many thanks once again to David for sharing his story, and just to say that David's views are his own and not reflective of his church's position. Thank you to the Arts Council of Northern Ireland for their funding to make this podcast possible through the Support for Individual Artists programme.